Seriously, who totally thought this wasn't a bad idea? I mean, I just found this random charm on the internet, and we all know the internet never lies about this stuff. Seriously, why not just friendship bracelets? So, well, let's descend deeper into this school of madness as I analyze the story and characters of Course Party. For anyone wanting to know, this video is for anyone that has at least finished the recently released PC or earlier PSP version of Course Party and wanted to fill any of the plot holes that they found in the story. So spoilers if you haven't played either, as I'm going through the entire story while analyzing the characters using information from the anime, manga, TU game, and Book of Shadows. With that, let's get this video started. The game starts off with Ayumi, the class rep of the main cast's homeroom, telling ghost stories between the process of cleaning up their classroom. After a slight shot they finish up cleaning, Ayumi suggests that they use a charm called Sachiko Ever After Charm, which is said to make it so that you be friends with someone forever. She suggests this because a friend of hers, Mayu, is transferring after the day, so her friends follow her instructions and complete the Sachiko Ever After Charm ritual. On their way out, the ground starts to shake and eventually gives way, resulting in them ending up in a place called Heavenly Host Elementary School. And with that, we start with our first playable character, Naomi Nakashima and Seko Shinohara. Naomi in the beginning starts off as a strong, tomboyish character who tries to show a level head during most of her school time. Her best friend, Seko, is the most cheery of her friends, who, if she isn't trying to lighten the mood, is talking to and sexually harassing Naomi. Mostly showcased in the anime and manga version. No. Bad Seko. No sexual harassment. After a bit of exploration, they run across their first spirit, who proceeds to tell them that they are inside a closed space. A multi-dimensional space that has created multiple versions of Heavenly Host Elementary. Naomi and Seko are in one of these closed spaces while the others are separated into other closed spaces, meaning that they will never be able to see each other unless they somehow figure out how to traverse between these closed spaces. Suddenly a spirit in red appears, and in shock, like the spirit they were talking to that immediately vanishes, they run out of the room. In the manga version, after they exit, it is shown that the girl in red burns a piece of paper on the floor, which is later revealed that is probably Seko's scrap paper from the Sachiko Ever After charm. Continuing past the ass cream and Naomi getting almost choked out by a vengeful spirit, Naomi finally loses it and lashes out at Seko, resulting in them splitting up. Following Seko for a moment, as she walks a few feet and hears a voice and decides to follow it. In the manga version, shows that she acts so cheery all the time to cover up the sadness of her mother that one day just straight up vanished, and reveals that she wanted to tell Naomi something, but scraps that idea as she thinks she could not beat Sayoshi, which I will explain later. After that, you return to playing Naomi, starts to get really scared and afraid of being alone and searches for Seko, which ends up leading her to the third floor bathrooms again, where she notices a sound coming from the girls' restroom. Investigating reveals that it is Seko, who is hanging from a noose. In her panic, Naomi, after pretty much making Seko get strangled even worse, I mean clearly it does not look like a good idea in the manga, goes out to grab a bucket to try to use it as a stand to get Seko down, only to find out later that it was a little bit too late. It is revealed around the end of the game that Naomi is actually one who kills Seko, but how exactly did Seko get all the way up there anyway? There's no way she let Naomi willingly bring her all the way there just to hang her. Well, in Book of Shadows' Seal Chapter, where Naomi does meet up with Seko before that happens, she reveals the plan she brought up in the manga. Well, I guess by plan they mean straight up love confession, I guess that counts. Naomi, not knowing how to respond, leaves the room and soon after passes out. Note that this probably actually does happen in the regular Course Party, it's just in between the lines and she doesn't remember it. So, and if you guessed that this was the girl in red Sachiko's doing, you'd be right, as in the manga, she is clearly the one that actually captures Seko and brings her all the way to the girls' restroom, where Naomi hangs her, which does correlate to the anime, as Seko's hands are tied when she is about to hang her. And I highly doubt Naomi was able to trick or knock Seko out so she could tie her hands. Chapter 2's cast consists of Ayumi Shinozaki, Yosuke Kishimura, Mayu Suzumoto, and Yu Shishido. Starting off with Ayami, she is the only member of the main cast to show any kind of physical ailment, as she is constantly coughing and having nosebleeds throughout this and later chapters. She can be very determined when she needs to be, though she is really oblivious sometimes.
岸沼君とあなたじゃなかった？あれ？そう。いい子だね。誰が？
Yosuke is basically Ayami's guardian angel. Not that she shows much appreciation for her sometimes. Who used to be a loner type until he became friends with the rest of the cast one day. He's a forward thinker, usually saying things that's on his mind, even though this usually gets him scolded by Ayami more often than that. Yui is the group's secondary homeroom teacher, and she's pretty much a kind-hearted person that puts her students first, and that's pretty much it for her. If you haven't realized now when playing through the first time, pretty much any character that dies, like Mayu and Yui, have really simple personalities, making them really hard to explain more about them. Because honestly, the only character that's really fleshed out the most and dies is Seko. So, on with Mayu now. Mayu is the second cheeriest person in the group, being also usually the one to lighten the mood. He is good friends with Moshige. He's also in the drama club, and she is dead. Okay, well, since there aren't any real plot holes from chapter 2 to 4 that really need to be explained, I mean, unless you weren't paying attention when you're playing through, I'm only just gonna go through slight differences and changes between this version, the manga version, and the anime version. Because honestly, if I did try to explain the entire story, it would take over 25 minutes in this video. So with that said, let's go on with the differences in the manga version in this chapter. In this chapter of the manga version, Yosuke actually almost dies in this chapter, but is saved by a gem given to him earlier by Yui. And the other difference is being also in the anime that Yui is the one that actually meets Mayu before she gets killed. The main cast in chapter 3 consists of Sayoshi Mochida, Yuka Mochida, Sakutora Moshige, and later Yui Kazami. Sayoshi is, well, the average main protagonist type, which makes his other traits like being scared of ghost stories and stuff like that take a back seat. And Yuka, well, she's pretty much every little sister stereotype ever. Moshige is the type of person that seems to keep to himself most of the time, well, except for when talking to Mayu, and is one of the only few characters in the main cast whose personality changes dramatically throughout Chorus Party. While Yui is that loner that everyone wants to date in high school, that turns out to be a psychopath. The major differences in this chapter's manga anime counterpart, that in the manga version, Yuya actually meets up with his friend Kurosaki while still together with Yuka, though he still meets the same fate similar to in the game version. And in the anime version, instead of meeting up with Kurosaki, they run into Moshige again, which ends up in Moshige getting killed by Kazami. In this chapter, you switch between Ayami and Sayoshi's team, as Sayoshi tries to save Naomi and Ayumi tries to appease the children that have appeared throughout every chapter. This is where the manga starts to slowly diverge from what happens in the game. Starting off with Sayoshi's team, after saving Naomi and leaving her to find Yuka, Naomi goes through her phone left behind by Sayoshi to read a message sent by Seko, which basically makes her feel like it was her fault Seko died. Which is quite easy to do, as Naomi appears to be a character that seems to blame stuff on herself a lot of the time. That ends in Sayoshi saving Naomi again, and showing her Seko's full message, and running away from a bunch of vengeful spirits and end up getting saved by Naho again. Though unlike the game, Naho comes off as a truly neutral character who you honestly can't tell whether she's intentionally helping the main cast or not. I mean, she taunts Nami in the beginning, in the very first chapter, right after Seko dies, but helps Saoshi by taking him to her closed space, and then proceeds to show that she's somewhat getting a kick out of watching how these characters are suffering. She's really, really wishy-washy. I also feel wrong if I didn't also bring up the fact that in the PSP version of Corpse Party, during the time Saoshi come back after searching for Yuka, if you've picked everything up that you were supposed to beforehand, then had Saoshi go visit Seko before picking up her phone, Nami will have a dream, more like a vision, of Seko who is dying, and will ask you the same question that she does in Book of Shadows, but this time you'll actually get a choice on whether to accept it or not. Which then, if you take into consideration as to what she says before asking in Book of Shadows, you'll realize that this was kind of a dying wish type of question, as she's worried about dying in Book of Shadows before ever getting to tell her. The only real major difference on Yami's side is that instead of finding the children's tongues, they need the pieces of the children that they ask for when you meet them in the game or run into them throughout the story. Now finally arriving at the final chapter, which is the most different in the manga version. I'll be comparing it with the true ending to start off with first. So let's quickly go through the checklist. Yuka gets kidnapped by Kazami. Yoshiki refuses to go with Yami back to Heavenly Host. Kibiki's spirit is wandering around. Naho's motives from the Book of Shadows are revealed. And Yami is affected by darkening. Takaguchi is staying when they run into him. The way they free Sachiko is completely different. Yu is still alive, and Naomi finds out she killed Seko outside of Heavenly Host. So, where to start? Well, let's go through the changes that seem to be taken from the wrong ending and the other ending routes in the game version of Chapter 5. Yoshiki only 100% refuses to go with Ayami in the game version when asked the first time if Yuka gets caught by Kazami, which ends in him revealing to Yami that he really likes her. Though in the manga version, Ayami again shows how dense she can be, only later realizing that that may have been a love confession. Ayami starts to also act very jealous of Naomi and Saoshi being together, which turns into full-on hate, to the point where she burns Naomi's only chance of escaping right in front of her, and enjoying every minute of it. Losing her own piece of Sachiko's charm later, she even kills Naomi for the one Saoshi gives her. In the manga version, she starts to act the same way, going so far as to trying to kill Naomi and knowingly leaving her trapped in the Heavenly Host. Though Naomi is thankfully saved by Takaguchi, who then proceeds to suppress Naomi's darkening and inform the group about the darkening. But even though he knows about the darkening, you think he would bring it up the fact that he's seen Naomi kill Seko, or at the very least bring it up in some way. Maybe he's worried that her friends might turn on him. He does show a resentment for Naomi though, because it seems like he actually didn't get a good look at who he was actually saving when he stopped Ayami. Now let's look at the differences in the game's true ending. Yui is still alive at this point, and alike in the game, the ghost that harmed her actually leads the cast to her, and they continue on with her after they find Naho. Kibiki's spirit is still wandering Heavenly Host, and it actually helps them in quelling Naho, who was actually being manipulated by Sachiko ever since she visited her estate, which ended up in her getting cursed. This would also explain why there were a bunch of other incidents that were brought up in Chapter 4 happening to Heavenly Host after Sachiko murders the children. If Sachiko curse is powerful enough to make people do things they normally wouldn't do when outside of her own realm. I mean, she has Naho spread the wrong information about the Sachiko charm, then uses her best friend Sayaka to get to Heavenly Host, knowingly full well that she can easily put them in different close spaces, and just to make sure Sayaka doesn't meet Naho, she even puts her in an area of the school there is no way Naho could possibly get to. So fair to say, Sachiko is quite devious and cunning when she needs to be. The manga's final encounter is completely different from the anime and game version, as Kaz doesn't appease Sachiko, but instead exorcise her, which only Ayami can do since she's the only one that has spiritual power, as Sachiko tries everything in her power to stop them by using the character's own weaknesses against them. But in the end, thanks to Sachiko's mother, they exorcise her, and the school begins to collapse, and on their escape they also take Seko's body with them. Unlike the game, however, they don't immediately leave because Naomi still doesn't have her piece of the Sachiko charm. Ayumi finally overcomes her darkening and gives her Sachiko charm piece back, but also says she lost her own piece of Sachiko charm like she does in the wrong ending game version. As Nami and Ayumi discuss who should take the piece, Yui interrupts and gives away her piece, saying there's no way she could make it to the hospital in time. Even if she did make it back, she would probably die anyway. Honestly, I'm surprised she lasted as long as she did in the game. After a tearful farewell, they escape, leaving Yui and Seko's body behind. And after that, it follows the game up until a certain point. Because apparently they were able to bring Takaguchi's backpack, which Nami has in her possession, which has recordings from Heavenly Host. In her search for finding any information that shows the existence of Seko, she discovers the footage of her killing Seko, and she takes it about as well as she does in the game, as she goes up to the roof of the school, with Shashi and the rest shortly following after her, and proceeds to try and jump from the roof, with Shashi luckily catching her at the very last second. Though I kinda question how that's even possible, but I digress. In the end, she gets saved by Seko, like in the game, through a text message from Nami's phone that just happened to have not fallen to the ground, apparently, and got stuck on something. Oh, and that's about it. I don't think I'm missing anything. How about the anime version? Oh yeah, in the anime version, only Ayumi and Nami are the ones that make it back in the anime version. Let's see, yeah. Kishimura dies, Yuka dies, and Yui dies, and Sayoshi dies. So you know, I'd say it went pretty well.